Welcome to another insightful episode of InfosecTrain's Tech Talks, Real World Decoded. So I'm your host, Anas. Organizing a racing to deploy AI in supply chain, in finance, in HR, in healthcare, customer experiences has become a very common term these days. But here is the uncomfortable reality, which nobody generally talks about when we see how we work on that. When I say many enterprises are approving AI faster than they are governing it, just recently, companies across industries had to restrict employee access to generative AI tools, and many of my friends have also seen that. After confidential internal data are accidentally being pasted into public AI systems during a routine work task. What started as a productivity experimentations quickly become a governance issue for everybody across the globe. And the reference, I must say, widely discussed incident involving like Samsung employees accidentally leaking proprietary data into ChatGPT in 2023, which forced internal destructions across several enterprises. And I think the time has come when we talk about enterprise level security AI. Now the question is where we are actually decoding today's this. Who signs off AI as risk, and how you move from an AI experimentations to an enterprise grade level approvals, which is really much important for everybody at this point of time. And to break this down from the real world, the boardroom, the execution perspective, I am actually thrilled and really excited to join with Mr. Kaustav Ghosh, a global technology leader. I have followed him from a very long time on LinkedIn. I have seen his task, his works, who has driven large-scale ERP, cloud, cybersecurity, and enterprise transformation progress across many organizations. And organizations like Johnson and Johnson, Philips, Lafarge, and Zeiss, and the limits it doesn't here. There is a lot of list going ahead. But yeah, when you bring somebody like him on the table to have a discussion, you are not only bringing knowledge, you're bringing experiences. And I think for all our people who are going to watch this episode, in the age of AI, knowledge is important, no doubt. But how much knowledge you need from an AI, how much experience you have, he operates where AI meets architecture, governance meets executions, risk meets accountability. That's all comes from his table. Mr. Kaustav, welcome you to the show. Over to you, sir. We'd love to learn something from you.
Thanks, Anis, for having me here. I am also really excited to also understand from your side perspective and give a way out, because we are all, in the area wherein we are all hearing AI, and let's see how we decode it in the coming time. Yep.
That's that's wonderful, sir. Uh, Generally, when we start the session, sir, we always have a question for our viewers, and that's slightly tricky because our production team gonna ask about that. We see you in multiple domains where you talk about cybersecurity, you talk about governance and AI. What if this wasn't your forte? What if this wasn't your career? One thing which you way have chosen something else apart from this, what you would be, Mr. Ghosh?
That's a challenging one, to first, opening question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Frankly speaking, my entire thing is on IT, right? So
Okay.
I will rather be, on the IT here, but probably I would love to be into the role of, outside IT, in
Okay.
the business IT. I will keep it that way because
That's
then,
great.
then I can ask the questions to the IT team, which I am hearing it out from my entire life,
That's
the
awesome,
difficult
sir. That's
ones.
awesome. And I want to ask one more question from you. Generally, a lot of IT professionals these days have this question that what excites the people who actually joined IT when that was not a profession back in 10, 15 years back, when now it has got a lot of buzz in the market. But what excites you at that time that is actually giving good reward at this point of time?
See, to be very frank, when I moved to IT, it was during the Y2K time, okay, and it's a huge buzz like what we are hearing in the AI world,
Hmm.
right? So that's the interesting part. I can relate to that. Yeah, the only reason that I joined was to be very open to go to outside India. Okay,
Okay.
that was the trigger point, and also to learn also because I am an electronics engineer from my background and that
Yeah.
area was not so much of a big scope for us to work on. So
Okay.
IT naturally came and I learned a lot of things to start with the
Hmm.
intention also on the back of my mind whether whether we can or I can go to in
Hmm.
outside India, work it out, and then obviously come back. That's the reason, to be very open. Yeah.
So that's very awesome, sir, and very interesting. I think everyone should have that one reason to spark their career, and we love to have you today. Uh, let's just jump into the first part uh, quickly here. So
Mhm.
I must say AI use to be an innovation discussions that's happening everywhere. We recently see AI Impact Summit as well. Now it's governance and regulatory conversation. So what changed? I mean, I want from your point of view.
Yeah. See, AI basically when it started few months ago, it was basically on the experimentation, and now it has moved to the operational decision making.
Mhm.
System earlier was not taking decisions, were making decisions like hiring decisions, credit approval, customer rejection, or pricing calls. Once AI touches people's right, livelihood, or data, it becomes a regulatory and a liability matter.
Okay.
If you see the India's DPDP Act as well as the data, the what makes data fiduciary directly accountable for
Mhm.
how personal data is processed, including within AI system, the
Correct.
board has no longer delegate this to IT alone. It's a joint
Hmm.
thing. So that's the reason it becomes a board level concern now. Yeah.
Okay, when I mean we have actually seen many time like the real case references of Amazon AI hiring tools showing bias against women,
Yeah.
the facial
Correct.
recognition controversy around IBM and vendor withdrawing products. Uh, when does AI shifts from being a pilot project to an enterprise risk concern? Where does it happen actually from your picture?
See, from my perspective, the moment AI process your personal data or business data or make decisions that affect individuals, right?
Okay.
And even the pilot that ingests customer data also must be having a lawful purpose, notice, and consent with respect to the current DPDP Act. Okay, so there is no pilot exemption that I am doing for the sake. It cannot be that way. Even if you're doing a pilot, it has to follow the guideline or the rule. If an
Okay.
AI system can impact a person's hiring, health, or financial outcome, it is high risk from day one. That's the logic we should think of. So enterprise has to work on that line.
Hmm. So there is always a discussion. There's a one side that's called the boards, the people who evaluate AI risk, and the other side we always have accountable people like CIOs, CISOs. So
Yeah.
are boards are truly prepared for evaluating AI risk, or they're still relying entirely on the CISOs and CIOs? What do you think?
I will say no. I mean, it's to be very blunt. Okay.
Mhm.
Most board review the financial risk, not on the AI risk. Okay.
Okay.
Very few. I will not say not all. Very few can assess the biases, the data lineage gaps, or the model
Okay.
explainability failure. The gaps is dangerous because regulators will hold you the organization, not the CISO or the CIO, accountable. Board need minimum viable AI
Hmm.
literacy. It's not that I
Okay.
want it, right? Understand what AI is, deciding whose data it uses, because we know AI is all based on data. And what happens also, right? It fails. That's the important thing the board has to understand. It's not that everything is AI. And currently, what we hear the buzz, right? So it has to have a consequence which the board should understand also, not in full, but at least the base level they should understand, to me.
Got it. You use a very interesting word that's called AI literacy. And
Yeah.
this AI literacy is slightly different across all the domains. So
Yes.
particularly if you talk about security, to the young people, because they are actually the major stakeholders of using these AI tools. Still the
Hmm.
responsible people, do you say, those who are at the mid or senior mid level, they really know the concern of security. So they are very specific for choosing these tools. So what type of literacy would you say on general purpose from you in terms of security?
See, I am doing my PhD in cybersecurity. Okay,
Oh, that's
so
great.
this relates to, we talk about cybersecurity, and I am doing the data analysis now.
Okay.
What I found is very interesting. The IT people. I'm doing a cybersecurity awareness and risk awareness with the people among the Bangalore, right, and IT
Mhm.
people. And what I found, I'm doing the analysis now. The base level analysis, I found that IT people are aware, but when it
Okay.
comes to execution or putting it into real life, is the fatigue that comes. I know it, right? why I need it. So then it becomes a problem. Similarly, for the mid-level also, it's an open world, right? So you can
Okay.
say, I don't know. But basic level is that you should know what are the consequences, at least to start with. That if I put like what you said, like the Samsung example or the Amazon example, right? These are very practical examples which we are facing. Okay, so you cannot say that, I am not aware of it, the
All
consequence. At
right.
least what happens if you paste your own data, right, and try to get some out of that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in that case, it becomes a challenge because you don't know where the data is going and where it is hitting across the globe, right? That data, that information is not with us. So when you do something within the domain of yours and when you copy paste, make sure that you review before you press the enter, because it may have a direct consequence to the company or to you in general, right? So we have heard a lot of deep fakes, we have heard a lot of
Right.
information being leaked out. So those are the reasons that at least you should be aware that what you're going to do and you own it. That's why my suggestion would be.
Absolutely true. So, with global regulations like EU Act that's actually on the table everywhere, that's emerging rapidly, how should these multinational enterprises align AI approvals across the geographies? Because it's very difficult. Some of the places these AI tools are making them absolutely free for the people, just like India becoming a market for everybody to come and work here. So, where do you see these alignments to be set in right place?
Yeah. So the thing would be my call is a bit different. My thing is that by building a common baseline, because every country is coming out with its own AI rule, right? Or let's say China has it, India has published a AI magazine or AI gadget, before the
Okay.
AI summit, right? Uh, Singapore has it, Australia has it. So you cannot cater to each and every country as such, right? So what you better do is that baseline the all the major points, as a regulatory regulation in your footprint. You has its own requires its own risk classification, uh, human oversight, and technical documentation for high risk applications. India DPDP Act requires purpose limitation, data minimization, and accountability of data fiduciary, which is different. So when you do it, unified AI governance framework that includes both risk, data consent, control, explainability of the documentation satisfied both, that provides positioning of you globally. So you adhere to the global thing, but follow the footprint of your local law. That includes, DPDP, whatever
Okay.
other country has it. So it
So
should be a balancing act. I will keep it that way
that's
for the
that's
for the MNCs.
okay. Got it. So let's just decode the process. Take a scenario like a business unit wants to deploy an AI-powered decision engines. Okay, I'm going to deploy that will take decision basis of
Mm.
the context which will provide. We have seen situations where algorithms were deployed in production with proper oversight. For example, like automated credit card decision systems, like rejecting application with little transparency about why the decision was made. If I take a real life example about this, I remember that this aligns with Apple credit card controversy involving Apple and Goldman Sachs, where the
Mhm.
customer raised concern about gender biasness in credit limits. What happened next in a mature organizations? How do you see these things to be coming ahead for all of us?
See, in a mature organization, the business unit raises a request,
Okay.
and IT assess the technical feasibility. Then you have the DPO or the chief data officer or the data protection officer reviews what data the AI will consume, and the legal checks the regulatory exposure, right? Let's say DPDP Act, sector-specific rule like RBI, RI, TAI, whatever. Uh, then risk assessment is performed from the AI perspective. If the system involves your personal data and automated decision making, then a data
Okay.
protection impact assessment is mandatory under the current DPDP norms.
Got it.
Only after the cross-functional sign-up does the system can go live for approval. So we will talk in later how the thing happens to be, but this is
Hmm.
the base framework, and these laws are, I'm talking only with respect to India currently.
Okay. Got it. And who own the risk? I mean, the
Yeah,
business
this is
sponsors
yeah. Means my
or,
one
or
people
the
will
data
not
control
like
officer
me.
who will take that
Yeah,
responsibility?
Yeah. So this is the business owner who owns the outcome. IT is the
Okay.
who enables the infrastructure. Very clear. The data protection officer governs the data. CISO secures the pipeline. Risk
Okay.
and legal validate the compliance, whether how it is
Mhm.
compliant to that. If no business owner can stand in front of the regulator and
Mm.
defend the AI decision, then your governance doesn't exist. And under DPDP Act, the data fiduciary, the organization, is legally accountable.
Okay.
Responsibility cannot be deflected to the vendor or the model because at the end of the day, the organization or the board is responsible for that.
Okay. So if I say, in many scenarios, I've observed that the things that people talk about is like data sensitivity, biasness, explainability, resilience. So what does a structured AI risk assessment framework includes? This is on your observation that people should always keep in mind.
Yes, so means keep it at minimum, Don't keep it at data because it may require or I may require in the future. We have this tendency,
Okay.
our mentality. Let's keep some data
Right.
because, we may require it and we don't know. Our law is very simple. Keep it as
Mm.
minimal. Check the consent status because if you're using personal data, whether you have taken the consent, okay.
Okay.
Then purpose limitation check what purpose you are using. So the person whom data you are processing, he or she should be informed in case of personal data what purpose. Even the customer data or the vendor data, the purpose limitation has to be checked. Then check the bias and the fairness testing. We have heard the stories about biases without even you knowing that because your uh, test data is different, right? So
Correct.
and what is the resilience and the fallback controls. There should be a human override mechanism into this for the there are risk categories, high risk, medium risk and all. For the high risk usage wherein you're hiring or your healthcare data or the credit data, a DPIA is required. As per the MATI, AI guideline reinforces that the organization must assess the risk before deployment, not after
Okay.
the harm occurs. So you have to do it beforehand, before you go live.
Hmm. So should AI systems require a go live approval similar to ERP or core banking systems?
Yes, and more rigorous, and more
Okay.
rigorous. Why I say that? ERP is affecting your processes, so AI affects people's right also in case you having the data, right? Uh, AI, a formal AI go live approval is a must to confirm that data consent is in place, the system is classified, risk tier is defined, human owner is assigned, AI inventory is there, and monitoring control are active. Okay, without that, better not to deploy it.
Okay. So, as far as I remember, you worked in a highly regulated, mission critical environments. When I say that, and apart, one of them is healthcare and an industry like pharma and manufacturing. In these industries, as far as I learned uh, from my learning, that failure isn't just about financial; it's about an operational catastrophic, absolutely for everybody. So in healthcare, we have already seen AI diagnostic systems being questioned because the training data set didn't fully represent the diverse patient populations or the issues which we raise concern about its accuracy across the demographics as well. Because maybe the data which has been given to the model trying to expect or predict the outcome from that. And several studies show that bias risk in medical AI systems used by hospital, not a single scandal, but widely documented research. So, for example, our diagnostic tools runs mostly on Western data set, struggled in other patient populations. How does AI governance differs in such environment?
I think the answer is in your question itself, right? In case of regulated industries, the consequence
Mhm.
of failure of is not just financial; it's a safety critical. Here, the AI governance here means validation at every stage. Training
Okay.
data must be traceable. What training data you're capturing? What model outputs must be auditable? And there must be a
Mhm.
documented human decision checkpoint before AI recommendation triggers a physical or a clinical action. Here also, the data that we are talking about, health, medical, which are high impact data. So we have to ensure that from where you're sourcing, where you're deploying, and also where and why and what, where you're decommissioning also in the coming days. So test data has to be validated, checked by the human, what type of test data you're training the bot, right, or the AI agent. Based on that, your answer changes, right? So, and also at the end of the day, which people normally forget or the enterprise forget is that to delete the training data, because then it will create a challenge when it comes with the original data. So also the
Okay.
decommissioning part. So you have to make sure the data sourcing from where you're sourcing, what you're deploying, and what you're decommissioning also, because AI
Hmm.
is all based on data.
So can AI generated insights be treated as advisory, or do they become decision making authorities? What do you see?
AI output are advisory, okay, but
Okay.
operationally.
Okay.
Uh, if an AI recommends you consistently followed without human review, it
Hmm.
has functionally become a decision maker, right? So
Okay.
if the human on the loop is not there, then it's a challenge. And if the decision impacts an individual like patient data, employee, supply chain, then the enterprise is liable for the outcome, regardless of whether the decision was labeled as advisory. The label
And
does
how?
not yeah, sorry, one
Yeah.
more. The label does not transfer the accountability.
Okay. Got
So
it.
you
And
can
how do
label it,
you
but
validate these outputs?
uh,
But
uh,
that but I wanted to just add some line there, and
mm,
wanted to say that how do you validate that output? I mean, you mentioned that there should be people in loop, a person should be in loop, he should review the content and then take it right. But how would you? There should be some parameters on which that even
yes,
the human should regulate that ecosystem.
yeah. The validation framework is very important. What you just asked, the baseline accuracy benchmarking before you go live. You have to baseline it the
Okay.
before the go live. Periodic model performance, that is also important. Audits post deployment, and drift monitoring. See, when you implement a AI, you have been trained the AI with respect to one set of data, correct? Now, any data change, right? The AI tend to shift without you knowing that, correct? So if the data changes, right, it may happen that the output also changes. So human on the loop, the person has to review it, has to document the checkpoints. There is a lot of checklist are there which you can implement, and the person responsible has to check the outputs, and based on that, he has to document the checkpoints or the deviation or the why it has happened. Okay, in pharma, let's say
Okay.
the area wherein the mirrors the GXP validation principle, right? So we
Hmm.
have to validate with respect to the GXP. Now, in case of financial service, it has to align with the RBI's model list. As simple as that. You cannot go beyond that, right? So you have to check that we have the set of rules, and with the data coming, it should align. No deviation. Now, with data coming, there will be junk data, no data, no master data. You can say it is, in any organization or enterprise is foolproof. So there will be, junk data coming. There will be some deviations here and there will happen. So we have to make sure the validation is an ongoing process, continuous process. It's not that one time
Okay.
you make it go live and sit, I am done. That will not happen because your data changes, obviously. Your, whatever thing you do, data is all based on data, right? So you have to make sure that you do the validation, based on your criticality of the application or the output, maybe in a quarter or maybe 6 months, or if it is more critical, like patient data or patient output, right? Health related stuff, right? So it can be 1 month also. So validation of data
Okay.
is very important.
Imagine like in a 500 million plus transformation program, how do
Mhm.
you prevent AI governance from slowing innovations while still maintaining the control? Because in many large transformation programs, governance frameworks are introduced late after systems are being already deployed, and that often lead to an expensive rework.
See, governance should not be treated as a showstopper. Okay, first of all,
Okay.
governance should be, to ensure that, in future, like what you said, right? It should be making sure that the governance is put into as a highlight for the risk perspective.
Hmm.
You cannot have the same governance structure for all your AI cases.
Okay.
So you cannot, that mistake people make or the organization makes is that applying the same process for every AI use cases. It has to be a approval model, allows fast moving teams to deploy the low risk AI. Let's say the marketing data, right? It is a low risk. So you can deploy sooner the better, right? You don't need to have the same thing. But let's say for high risk, like transformation, you said, right? So transformation is hitting all your business cases like supply chain, finance, and all, right? For
Okay.
that, you have to ensure that your the compliance framework or the GRC framework is different from the low risk items, because if you generate something wrong, it may cause you a reputational risk for your organization.
Okay.
So when you do this, you have to make sure that you classify as low, medium, and high risk.
Okay. So this could be a most tricky one, because when this comes into the picture, a lot of people find themselves away the thing that's called accountability. And if an AI system discriminates, it miscalculates or
Mm.
cause financial loss, who is responsible in your opinion?
I mean, I will go by the law of land of India with the organization. Okay,
Yeah.
very simple. There are different laws, so it cannot be a generic law for all of the people. In case of India, as per the DPDP Act, it is very simple. It's the organization. Even uh, the vendor or the model provider does not absorb the regulatory liability. Very clear. If an AI system causes harm, regulators will come and ask who approved it, what data was used, what controls were in place. Okay. If those answers are absent, the organization is exposed, right? Uh, and you see this, you gave the example of Amazon bias, right? So AI was not malicious. The governance
Yeah.
was absence, right? It's nothing
Correct.
the AI did wrong, because AI was given a data set. From there, it derived a malicious output. So it is the
Absolutely.
responsibility of the organization that a governance is in place. And if it is absent, you're having a big problem in the coming days.
So personally, have you seen a situation where AI system looked technically sound, but later created a governance or compliance issue for organizations apart from this on a real ground? Where have you experienced something like that?
As of now, luckily, no, touch wood. We are going through this process, and I am trying to put the guardrails in place. We are also, every other organization is having this challenge, how to put it. So we are in a process of framing it. We are doing that. But there will be cases wherein it has
Okay.
happened. Luckily, it's not in my, as of now, in a practical way. So lucky in that way.
Okay. So, a top of layer of this, should an organization maintain an AI decision log for audit trials? Because this is something which people are talking about, but it
Hmm.
has to be implemented now only, until you have in your backend uh, millions of token hungry prompts which has been fed by your organization employees. So, do you see this as a trial we should keep ahead?
It's mandatory, not
Okay.
optional. Let's make it simple.
Okay.
Decision logs are there as a primary evidence. Okay, so
Okay.
for AI driven decisions affecting individuals, rejections, approval, pricing, flagging, the system must have a log. What
Okay.
input data was used, what model was recommended, whether a human reviewed it or not, and what was the final decision was.
Hmm.
And as per the law here, you can also have a right to seek grievance, that why it was
Okay.
like this, and that has to be addressed. Without decision
Okay.
logs, the organization cannot respond to that right. So it's not a
Got
mandatory,
it.
it is must. No, sorry, not an optional, it's a mandatory. Other way
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
But I see a lot of enterprises are underestimating the algorithmic bias risk, because you see the business is growing and they are constantly ignoring this parameter. how long do you see that they can run or they can go ahead without getting a bottleneck?
Yes, see, what you said is correct. The biases often hide behind the good accuracy metrics. A
Okay.
model can be 95 to 100% accurate overall, while systematically disadvantaging is demographic segment.
Okay.
Organization must measure the model performance, not the fairness. Bias risk requires specific testing.
Okay.
Disaggregated performance, analyze sensitive attribute audits and fairness benchmarking is must. Okay. Most enterprises are not doing that at deployment, let alone periodically. And this is a must, another must to have it. You know, because you have to have a guideline as per the METI AI guideline. Everything will be documented and assessment has to be made as per the government requirement, governance requirement.
Hmm. That's pretty simple to understand. But sir, I
Hmm.
wanted to have curiosity to ask you because you will be the right person to help me out on this. We have been listening things from ages that human in loop. Uh, I mean that generally reduce liability or just
Yep.
create a perceived safety in our mind that we kept a human in loop. I mean, let me give a very simple analogy first. I'm sleeping inside my home, and in back in my mind, I have a clarity that I have kept a guard outside my home. I have kept somebody physically out present there. Whether the person is sleeping, whether the person is has opened his out and keeping vigilant himself or not, but there is a subconscious belief. Okay, I've kept somebody out there, and that has been replaced with the CCTV cameras later down the line. Uh, that okay, I have installed CCTV camera. Not even I don't have to be at home. Not even I have wanted to keep a guard as well there. Now we are entering in an era we we don't need a human there. We just need a CCTV camera, and that camera, basis on the movement of people, take few decisions that which door has to be open, which door has not to be open. And for these activities, we are concerned more to keep human in loop. So the mid technology has removed human, and this AI technology is again calling AI human in loop. How do you see this paradox?
See, it is the way you put it forward, right? See,
Okay.
if I am on the loop of any AI system and I don't do the scrutiny properly of the
Okay.
data that is inside and what is coming out, I am a rubber stamp as a human
Okay.
on the loop, right? So then it becomes a good good thing to have, right? Then if you're not doing the right thing as a human or you become
Mhm.
a rubber stamp, then it doesn't make sense. Okay. Regulators or the bodies will look at the override rate, how much time it was override. If it is nearly zero, they will conclude the other way around. The human oversight was symbolic, so rubber stamp. So that's what I was saying, right? If the override
Okay.
is zero, that's the interesting part. Genuine
Okay.
human in the loop means the model recommended, a human decided, and the reason is captured and the decision is locked. Not for all, but for the critical ones. I always say that.
Okay. That's pretty clear. Uh, let's just jump into one more part, sir. This is not, I think, it's a part of this discussion, but in your view, is AI risk more technical, ethical, or governance driven?
Is governance driven. Uh,
Okay.
I may sound a bit biased, but because technical failures and ethical failures both become catastrophic only when the governance is absent. Same
Okay.
example of Amazon. It
Okay.
was technically good, ethically it was also fine, but the governance was not there. Bias is a technical problem that becomes legal problem because governance did not test for it, right? Hallucination, we know, we
Absolutely.
talk a lot, is a model behavior that becomes a liability because governance did not enforce validation, correct? Every AI risk that materializes into a real harm traces back to a governance gap. No ownership, no control, no audit, no accountability. It just went through, like a floodgate. And then we trace back and see this is not there, hallucination, verification was not there, bias was not there, there is no traces. That's the reason I say governance is the key one here.
Let's be honest, sir, because you have seen this from ages. Do you think that we were actually prepared for governance of AI, the way AI has actually evolved?
To be frank, no.
Okay.
And that's what, a lot of organization enterprises are still struggling. I was in one of the webinar wherein I found out that, no, every big lot of people in the senior level joined in my webinar, and I can figure it out. They're all struggling, because everybody wants to do. And currently what
Hmm.
has happened, it is coming like a, bomb, right? Everybody wants to do, every organization wants to do, and there's nothing wrong in that. Don't take me wrong that I am against it. No, there's nothing wrong. It should be. And there are a lot of areas wherein we should do that. But the thing comes is that whether it is properly governed, whether we are following the law of the land. In India, we don't have a law as such with respect to AI, but we do have our own Data Protection Act as well as the AI gadget which was published, right? So we have to adhere to that. Otherwise, all these biases, all these catastrophic things will happen. So we are not prepared. We are all struggling to figure it out. The way it has come, within last, if you see last quarter or last 6 months, it is just bombed on us. So we are all trying to
Yes.
work it out. Yeah.
Okay, so we can clearly see that there is a great opportunity of GRC people and the governance people in AI adoption, AI
Yes.
implementations, and AI enterprise development and deployment. So that's a very
And
good thing that we can also see.
maintenance
Yeah,
also, wherein you
and
can
maintenance.
do that. That is also important. Yeah.
That's I mean that's very great that one side people look AI as uh, a job killer, but on the other side we can see it is actually opening
Yep.
big gates. If you're,
Yep.
I would also say the way you mentioned it very clearly, sir, that you need to be enthusiast, you need to be self governed about these technologies and building as interest. If you're doing it like a work, maybe you fail, but if you're doing like a self interest, maybe you can develop something which is actually good for yourself.
Correct.
That's really interesting.
Exactly.
So let's just talk about something very unreal and shadow AI. This is very common terminology these days. People are actually listening. Employee are using generative AI tools without formal approval. So I would say I would not deny on this. People have been working on work from homes. Let's just because on this part, let's sir be honest. Instead of being going to a systematic learning, let's do the real learning. People are having the office given gadgets. They also have their personal gadgets. They also have access to these AI tools on their personal gadgets. They have find loops to bring and dump in down informations to these generative AI tools without formal approvals. And in fact, multiple enterprises discovered employee uploading internal codes as well, customers'
Yep.
data, strategy documentations in public AI chat tools simply to speed up the work and creating a completely new category of insider risk. Now, same employee which was a productive element for the company is now becoming an insider risk. So, what's your optional flow on this? Wanted to know on a very base level, sir. Let's see.
Yeah, means see, governance, you cannot prohibit people. They will have somehow rather work out something to use this. So prohibition is not a solution to me. Governance has to be there first of all. The awareness, enforcing ban is not the right word to me, not the right way. People should be aware, right? I will tell you my personal example. I do take help support of ChatGPT when I'm doing my doctorate study, right? It has to be there. Let's use it in a proper way. And when I do that, I ensure, I use no company data nor my company tool or the laptop. I make sure that I don't talk about my organization. I only talk about the thing that I am going to do. Similarly, the flip side, when I am using my laptop, right? If I have to use ChatGPT, I ensure that awareness or that inculcation has to happen. You have to inculcate that I am not going to share my personal data or company data in the tool. So awareness is one of the thing. Uh, you know, Make sure that the AI tool is defined, the permitted tools as per you classify your data, and train the employees on what data must never leave the enterprise boundary. you know so that is more important. Uh, so there will be governance in place, but ban will not help you, according to me.
Okay, but sir, just a
Hmm.
concern. I had reviewed the data a few weeks back, and I realized that there's only 17 to 16% companies in India has introduced AI usage policies
Hmm.
after internal data exposure concerns surfaced. I mean, 16-17% is still way lesser than.
Nothing.
Don't you
Yeah.
think at an enterprise level it is their responsibility to immediately roll out a AI usage policy for their employees at least, if not they are into
Exactly.
governance, but about the
Exactly.
policies?
Yeah. So you have to. That's what I always say. Nothing. Banning will not help.
Okay.
First of all, it has to be a policy rolled out. And in a lot of organization, I have seen that when you use the chat GPT, they say that first, there should be a pop-up or there should be a training thing which is compulsory. I will just giving a suggestion wherein they have to go through the employee should be complying to that training, so that at least it hits your mind, right? Because now you go to chat gpt and copy paste, something goes off, right? But if a pop-up comes that you have to do this ABCD training, or let's say A training, right? When the person goes there, it will be on your hindsight that I should not do this. So policy should be there, has to be rolled out ASAP, because 16 or
Okay.
17% whatever data you said is very less, and that is not helping us.
Correct.
That's the
Sir,
thing.
one thing that came into my mind, I mean, this may be as a young mind asking to you. And I know in real terms what is important, but when
Hmm.
a SOS, I always see AI as an SOS situations, as you mentioned, that it is just being bombed us from the rise of agentic AI. Everybody wants to do it. Do
Hmm.
you still consider right now, if we are not in direction of governance, at least consider policy? Or do you see policy right now is more ahead than governance in terms of implementations, not in terms of value?
See, the basic policy has to be there to me. Okay, governance is a long driven posture, and governance depends upon your risk posture also of the organization. Okay, so
Okay.
it's an ongoing process. It is always evolving, it is changing, but the policy, at least the base level policy, has to be drafted and implemented, and the employees should be aware that we have to adhere to that. It's not that you can stop it. There will be, here and there things happen, because we all do make mistakes. So we are human, right? We are not AI agents. So there will be mistakes we make, but it's a thing that you have to make it a collaborative effort with your organization and the people, and try to tell them that you be aware, it is important. That's the way.
Okay. So just thinking it ahead, let's just talk about something, sir, which can help people to build policies. So how should an enterprise detect and manage unauthorized AI usage?
See, you can in few organizations they do have their logs, in the gateway, wherein they can check, and they get a report from, they have a tie-ups and all, they have that thing. Okay,
Okay.
so that way you can do, in the gateway or in the logs, right? You figure it out that what is there. So that is the one option. Other than that, I have a bit challenge that if there any other solution in place, whether you can do it something more than or no, whether it is doable or not. I have a doubt. I have not, malicious AI and uncontrolled, yep. But shadow AI requires attention. Most AI incidents in the enterprise, if you see, today are not attacks. They are governance failures, an employee using unapproved tools, a vendor processing. So we have to make sure the awareness, as well as on the people know that what you can do and what you cannot do, or what you should not do, not cannot, should not do.
Okay, got it. So, what kind of sensitive enterprise data should never be exposed to an external AI system?
Let's say your personal data, customer data, your price list, your vendor list, your vendor master, or anything that affects your personal information, or you're identified as in Anis or Kaustav, let's say,
Mhm.
and which is hurting your company, or other your competitors comes to know about your company, roadmap policies that you are planning to, the
Okay.
future roadmap. That should be the case.
I always been very fond of Sir PAM. That's called Privilege Access Management. When that came into the picture, we actually came to a situation that we give one application to everybody, but with limited access. Like everybody is using the same server, same access, but they have limited access. And then something beyond that came into picture. It's called zero trust architecture.
Yeah.
Okay, even if you know, you verify it. So
Mm.
keeping both these in mind, how they both are relevant in AI governance, and how do you see them as an enabler in terms of securing our usage?
See, zero trust architecture is a must to have, okay? Wherein you don't trust, you know the basics, right? What is zero trust? Okay, I don't want
Yeah.
to get into that. So that is a must. And you should always have a least privilege access to anybody with respect to once you cross that gate of zero trust, once you're okay, don't give a privilege access to the thing, give the least ones, least
Okay.
access. And then if somebody asks, let's say, the CXO board will ask for, access, right? So please make sure that you capture that whom you have given that privilege access and try to
Okay.
access whether he is the person. Everybody will ask for that, right? There's nothing wrong.
Hmm.
But whether he is really required or not, that is also
Right.
important. Always try to follow this zero trust as well as least privilege, not the PAM, not the
Got
privileged
it.
one.
And let's take a very simple example. We know, I mean, it's very beyond our understanding, but sometimes we know that one specific thing is harmful to us,
Hmm.
but is sometimes it's addiction to use it or to consume it makes us keep doing the same thing, and sometimes it's uncontrolled adoption as well. So
Mhm.
in AI, is the bigger threat is malicious AI or an uncontrolled internal AI adoption?
I think uncontrolled one because
Okay.
most of the organization or enterprise, if you see, I take it as a baseline that they are well protected from the
Okay.
security aspects. There will be data breaches, no data is all those things we know. But currently, with the current thing, people are much aware that our system should be protected. CXOs also understand, so they spend money because your reputation will be in stake. So malicious adoption with the internal people is more challenging because once you don't control that, there's a chance that what data is going out, nobody what we are talking about, right? We have no control over that, so that is more dangerous to me.
Okay, so that's, I think we are very close to sum up our discussion, and I really love in a very classified, simple way we have actually get to know about its security, AI's governance, and AI handling is an AI importance. We always have a quick shot for our viewers from you. We wanted to love to know something from you, sir. So we have few questions. Whatever comes in your mind, you are ready to just share with your first thought. One AI governance mistake enterprises are making right now.
Treating AI governance as a future problem.
Okay.
It is already there, trust me, and it is accountable. Your accountability is live, so sooner the better.
Okay, right. One document every AI adoption or AI deployment must have.
An AI register entry covering the
Okay.
ownership, data used, decision impact, and human oversight. Yeah.
This is slightly tricky. Build fast or govern fast?
Govern as you build.
Okay, govern
Risk
as you build.
tire, yeah. So try to start doing that, with the appropriate controls from day one, not after the harm occurs.
This is my favorite one to ask you. Centralized AI control or federated models?
Federated execution, centralized accountability.
Okay,
It's a
that's
yeah,
something
I
very,
keep it that
yeah,
way.
a different flavor to learn.
Yeah.
One's future skill technology leaders must develop in for AI governance.
Translating AI risk into business and regulatory language.
I think that's very clearly you mentioned about and very precise about your output and your
Yeah.
answers. We really loved it, and this conversation clarifies something critical that
Hmm.
AI governance is not about slowing innovation. It's about making sure innovation survives scrutiny and a long-term generational use. AI systems can scale decisions that we have seen, but governance determines whether those decisions are sustainable, compliant, and defensible. That is most
Correct.
important. For
Right.
leaders watching this, I must say, approving AI is no longer just a technology decision. It's a business, regulatory, and reputation commitment. When I say reputational commitment, yes, because you will be get compared with your competitors in the market that how much AI adoptions you have done. The real transformation isn't about deploying AI, it's governing it responsibly from risk assessment to final approval. That's all from my end. We really loved it. Giving you a final keywords to you, Mr. Kaustav, if you would love to share a few words to our viewer, that'll be absolutely great for ourselves.
Yeah. My thing is this, thanks a lot, Anis, for having me in this show. And it's a privilege also to speak to the people and also making sure that whatever it's a feedback thing which I've learned, giving back to the society, and hope in future people have some input from this and work on that line. That will be my final words.
Absolutely true. We really loved it, sir. You came up on the show, you shared your wisdom with us. I think that's a very quick one, but a really impactful one for everybody, because that also shows that precise information is needed when you interact with somebody who comes with tons of years of experiences. Direct point, you get to know to what you wanted to implement, to what you wanted to do, and how you wanted to do. Until next time, stay secure, stay strategic, and stay accountable for whatever you are actually doing in the age of AI. Thank you so much,
Correct.
sir, for coming up today. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.